right, everybody. I've got another very special guest for y'all. Everybody, please welcome to the show, Mike Salisbury. Welcome, Mike.
Hello.
So, Mike, you got so many cool things going on. I mean, I see on your website all these cool projects. Something with video games going on. We'll definitely jump into that. But before we get into too much of anything, I want to know, what's your origin story? Were you always in the comics? Was this always kind of the plan? How did life get you to this point?
Yeah, that's a good question. My origin story kind of started later. I always doodled. I didn't really start making comics until I was probably like in my 20s, early 20s. I know a lot of folks will get started pretty early and they'll have like strips and they'll build on that and they'll get feedback, go to art school. But I actually started drawing comics and cartoons at a desk job at Geico, the insurance company. I was working at a call center, and I always doodled, and people would always comment and say nice things. So I was like, okay, it must be kind of good, but I never thought those comments were good enough to take this professionally. But I had a boss that stopped by my desk, and I was doodling a couple characters, and he was like, "What are their names?" And I was like, I don't know. And then I just made up some names and kind of lied in the moment. And then he was like, those are really good. How did they meet? And I was like, what are these questions coming from? I'm just drawing some cartoons. And then he walked away, and I kind of looked down and I was like, well, how did they meet? And what are their names? And I continued to develop that and draw. And then I tried to put up my first comic strip online, and it was really bad. And no one commented on it, and no one liked it. So I went to art school because I was having so much fun, even though it wasn't that good. And it's called TGMA 2D at nights while I worked at Geico at a call center during the day job. And I honed my skills, a lot of great teachers, super vetted people. I wasn't vetted. I thought I would get really good just from listening to them, but I had to do the work. So from there, I got better. I put out a strip called Boundless, and ever since, that's kind of what's been taken off, and I'm improving and working on. And there's more to that, but the origin story really was, I guess, a little late in the game compared to some people, as a nighttime hobby, and which is starting to grow and turn into something that's much more. So not super fancy, but that's kind of the origin story. At least what got me to think about comics on a little bit more serious level was just someone being nice and saying, "This looks cool. What are their names?" And then, seeking that out.
See, everybody, just a nice word here and there could change someone's life. That's all it takes.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. The first person who saw the strip when I put it up, most of the comments weren't super positive, but there's one person that was like obsessed with my two characters, and they're named Emily and Rudy. They really were engaged, and I said, well, if one person can get inspired, I said maybe more can. But there's a super humbling process if you want to grow as an artist and a storyteller. And I decided to go down that path. And you really have to self-reflect and be willing to consider that your work's not strong, your characters don't have a lot of foundation. And since then, I've been able to build and grow quietly. And now this is like the second interview I've done this year. It's probably been six years plus I've been working on stuff behind the scenes, but now I'm actually starting to talk about it, and start sharing it with people a little more. So a lot of cool stuff is happening. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always interesting to me. Like, we see comics, and this is to blame with like Marvel, DC, but as much as we love those properties, I mean, I'm a huge fan of both of them, but we see them as like a month to month, week to week thing, kind of almost throwaway media. And you talk to people, and it's like, man, this is years of their lives thrown into something.
Yeah. Well, now we got people scrolling, right, on Webtoon and wherever, and but the thing is, though, is I was a big proponent of big cinematic shots, even in my small, simple cartoons and big stories, and big books. Like this book, the first book I finished is 420 pages, which is for any artist, that's like no small feat. Like that's a lot of artwork. So when it comes to that stuff, I have this huge book and I have all the stuff, and I'm kind of going back to release it. And I was looking at webtoons, and they're like so short. The episodes are so short, kind of to meet that need of people to just scroll, be done, like check, got my episode, and then they go on to the next. And I was kind of like, are we sitting here and are we like actually processing the story or these characters? And sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but you know.
Yeah, more likely in like a more meaningful fantasy book will process it, but not
Yeah.
as much like Daredevil punching Kingpin. I'm just there for the
Yeah.
punch.
Oh,
Like,
so those are great shots. Yeah, like those are awesome. And the funny thing is, I lived overseas as a kid, so
mhm.
like that whole comic saga that like people went through and they were shopping, they're going to get their books and like they had to dig and search for it all, like which is super cool. I didn't have that. Like I lived in France and Singapore and stuff like that where there were French cartoons, and I think the only ones that we had at the time, I'm trying to remember, was like Looney Tunes, I think it was.
Okay.
But it's not like you had any comic stores in Paris, right? So I didn't get exposure to that until I was older as well. So it shaped what kind of drawings and stories I tell a bit. Because I think if I was the whole time in the U.S., I probably would have totally went down the whole Marvel, DC, like action, very hard edge, sharp lines, a lot of like strong character kind of archetypes. But I think living overseas shaped how I do stories a little differently.
Yeah, you probably, if you did see comics, they were probably manga, right?
Not even.
No.
Yeah, I would say nowadays, yes. Nowadays, yes, but back in the 90s, I don't even know if that section was even in any of the bookstores, in at least in Paris or in Singapore or anything like that. But I bet you today for sure. I feel like
I
it's all over now.
Yeah, I know in France today, like in the past 20 years or so, manga's been like their biggest boom
Yeah.
economy in terms of comics. So
Oh, for sure.
yeah. So you were like a army kid?
No, no, most people do that. My dad worked for a international company, and he was an HR guy, so they'd ship him around, and we'd go with him. So, um, yeah, along for the ride.
Still, it's an interesting upbringing. Like you get to see all these different places. You're not kind of bound to one spot, and I'm sure
Oh
there's a
yeah,
lot of negatives that go with that as well. But that's a very unique and cool upbringing.
yeah. No, I mean, there's phases. Like any teenager would look at something and be like, "Oh, this and that." But as I'm getting older, I'm kind of looking back, and I really appreciate that exposure.
Yeah.
It changes how you look at things for sure.
Do you think as you grow as a storyteller, that exposure, maybe being exposed to different cultures, maybe different rituals, different mythos, has affected your storytelling today?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Um, I think the more you can get your hands on in the world, the more you have to work with. So I don't think it would make you a better storyteller per se, but if you hone in on your storytelling skills and then you go out and you see all these different things, you kind of get a little, buffets of different things you could take that are really good and put into your work. And I think that's what helped. But it doesn't. I definitely don't think living overseas or seeing the world makes you better at anything, honestly. But
No, I think it just gives you kind of a fresh perspective. I was actually just talking to a comic creator last weekend about last weekend as we're recording this, everybody, about how I was at a Comic Con with him and he had this book and I'm like, this is a setting, a culture that like we don't see in any media. It was
yeah.
a Aztec fantasy book, and
Oh, okay.
I'm like, when's the last time, if ever, you see an Aztec fantasy book?
Like
I can't name it.
Aztec history class, eighth grade project.
Yeah.
Yeah, never a fantasy book.
And I was like, I'm going to buy this just because it's unique. And it
Yeah,
ends up being a really great book on top of that. But uniqueness, kind of, even if it's just telling the same story with a different culture or different
yeah,
style, is like huge, is
yeah.
huge in today. And
Oh,
one of the
for
things
sure.
I noticed is I have your website kind of on the second screen right now as I'm scrolling through. There's two things
Yeah.
I really noticed, and one is your creatures, your animals. You have this like, in some of the pictures that are scrolling through, you have these very unique creatures throughout the
Yeah.
different images. Like, where do those come
Yeah.
from? Is that from your kind of your experience? And
Yeah, so that I think the whole creature monsters or when you create like a worldly trying to create another world, that came from the huge, and this is where I'm a little different than most comic artists. I think we all want to think we're different, but when I went to school at night to CGMA 2D, all the teachers were from the film industry,
Mhm.
from like Disney, Pixar, or sorry, yeah, Pixar, DreamWorks. Some of them were some game studios, and they were so big on world building and storytelling, and that's where I kind of crafted a lot of my character design, and it was kind of from a movie sense. Now I know a lot of artists in the comic world; they might do the same thing, but I actually don't know a ton of other like comic book artists, so I don't know. But whenever I design characters and creatures, it's usually based upon the contrast of the scene. So, for example, if we have a huge mossy giant, it's just to create that cinematic scale and that shot, right? But we want to have a story of like, okay, this person's small. What's the camera angle? Why is this angle at them this way to make them feel smaller? And what are they overcoming emotionally, and through the plot on top of physically trying to tackle a giant monster, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the every character design comes from for me. There's a little bit of a subconscious plot play I'm trying to add to it too. Um, yeah.
And the next thing I noticed is kind of a 1A 1B kind of thing, but you have this character design that feels like that very cartoony but
Yeah.
realistic style that I think you gathered from your experience, especially with stuff like Looney Tunes. And it also is something that you're seeing more and more in that online scrolling comic scene.
Yeah.
Was that kind of a coincidence for you that you just kind of fit right in? Was that something you
Yeah.
actively looked to do?
Coincidence. Nah, that was total coincidence. Because what I did was I was always obsessed with like Calvin and Hobbes and like some of those beautifully drawn, simple line characters. But then when I went to the night school, they're painting these like fantastic like digital, cinematic scenes that are so massive and have such good rendering. So I kind of tried to mash those together, like keep that little simple line, on top of like a really rendered out cool painting. And then that's how I create this thing. And right now it's like, yeah, I mean, I've been doing this, I think, since I was 20, so it's like 12 years ish. Not, didn't start great, but I think it's starting to pick up, and graphic novels are starting to even grow even more. So I was just kind of lucky. I was going to do this either way. Like I was that's just hooked on this stuff.
And are you doing your own coloring digitally?
Yep, I do it
Yep.
all. The writing, um, I do all the digital art, and then the line, and then the rewriting, depending on whether I work with my editor or myself.
Because the other thing I notice is through your coloring and through your characters, you have just these small details that I don't think a lot of people are going to pick up on, but are huge to the scene that you're building with just these still images that are flowing across my screen right now. For instance, I don't understand why any artist would want to do this, but good on you for doing it. Adding tattoos to a character and
Yeah,
having it be consistent, and then like the giant whale in the sky, just the way
yep,
his you colored it so it looks like he's made out of water
yep.
and stuff like that. Like how much goes into that? Like
A
how
lot.
yeah.
So, what's funny is when I first saw art like that, like a tattoo on a character and then a whale in the sky, it used to drive me nuts. I used to be like, it's so corny and like typical, whatever. But everything I draw now has a place in the plot. So there's a reason that these characters and that the one that you're looking at there, which is for the story called Hesper and the Akshapa,
Hmm.
those Akshapas are basically like wizards. but tattoos are a symbol to them on how they create their spells. And that story is more about creating spell creation, because there's so many stories about like, Alakazam, someone does a spell, we don't all question it. We all go, cool, yep, he did a
Yeah.
spell. This is more about crafting, the world of crafting spells. How long does it take to figure one out and make one? And in that culture for an Akshapa, the tattoo is kind of that symbol of them completing one that they've made. So that would be like there's the plot point, and then there's the art that shows it, and then for the whale in the sky, in the story, it starts out as a minnow, swims up to the clouds, and it was a spell that creates a way to water crops. And there's so much more into the story, the plot. That's just kind of the scene. But yeah, so what happens is I have the story in my mind or the plot, and I go, okay, how can I draw this thing? And that's why you're like, why would someone want to put themselves through as an artist? How do I make a water whale in the clouds? And I ask myself the same question. I'll be like, oh, this would be cool. Crap, I got to draw this now. And then I have to figure it out, which takes a lot of time, but.
Well, even like the water whale in the sky, it's like, yeah, we could spend a page or two with that, and
Yeah.
look at this cool thing I drew and moved on. But to put a tattoo on your main character, man, like, and to put like he's covered, legs. I see his arms. There's an image of him getting a tattoo on his back, like,
Yep.
and that has to be consistent with every
blast.
panel.
I like to blast sometimes archetypes. Like someone's like a wizard is like typically an old man with a beard, and I was like, well, what if he was kind of more like a dude who's been through it, has a little bit more tattoos, and like might be more alternative and not say whimsical things and kind of be difficult. Like I love kind of reversing some of those characters.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Nobody talks about the old dude wizard. Like he had to have been young, learning at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what platform did you start posting them on where you were starting to get attention?
So when I first didn't succeed, it was Smack Jeeves, was a long time ago. I don't know if you know what that was, but it was like a small comic website that I think stopped. I don't think it exists anymore. Mm-hmm. And then after, right around the COVID era, I just started posting on Instagram. Like literally just, I was kind of like, whatever, just here's an episode. Mm-hmm. And it grew my account. I think it got like 20,000 plus followers, and I was actually like super surprised. I think I got hooked into some like algorithm during COVID that just like took off with visual comics on Instagram. And then I put it on Webtoons, and it also like took off. And then this is where I did something a little different. Is I was like getting all wrapped up in views, likes, comments, and I sensed something a little toxic was going on with that. So I actually stopped. I took it off of Webtoons. I was like halfway through the first book, and then I took it off of Instagram, and I disappeared, at least from posting stuff for 4-ish years. And then I finished the book to the art quality that I wanted with all these details and everything. And I just put Boundless, the first episode, back up on Webtoons yesterday. Now that the first book's done, there's 2 more, but that's kind of what happened as far as posting publicly. It was just Webtoons and Instagram.
If you don't mind talking about it, what do you mean by toxic? What were you feeling?
Yeah, I don't think anyone was being toxic. I mean, when things grow fast, people send weird messages. Nothing was negative, but just weird people out there. But I felt the pressure to meet the needs once people get used to something, right? Mm-hmm. Just like we were talking about earlier with Marvel Comics and whatever, they have full studios, full teams, full structures. They have a writer, they have a letterer, a writer, a color artist, and an inker. It's just me. It's a one-man band. So I think most people were used to releases being so frequent. It was getting to a point where I had to keep up, just as someone who does all of that. And I was like not living. I was just drawing. Right, and I've decided I want to be a person before an artist, and that was a decision I made, which I still make. But yeah, it was super hard to keep up with what people I think wanted, which I appreciated it, but like burned me out.
The weight of expectations kind of got to you.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
I mean, and just like kind of like I didn't know how to communicate clearly. Like, hey, I want to do this at a healthy amount, and then I questioned myself. I was like, well, what's a healthy amount? And I was like, well, at the time, not even setting any deadlines or anything. I needed to just like step away fully. Um, so yeah.
What made you go to a platform like Webtoons over maybe doing it yourself, printing it yourself, doing a
Yeah.
crowdfunder or something like that?
Again, it was kind of a little bit of energy, right? Being a one man band, like I was able to get this site, this new site built and host stuff because we can use some AI to code, to be straight up. Like,
Hmm.
I didn't have 5 grand to pay someone to recode something. However, Webtoons was just so easy. Easy access, a lot of exposure. But I mean, it led to other things, Boundless, and I did submit Boundless to, which got me an agent, believe it or not, and I was done. And that opened some other doors, but just ease of mind. That's why I picked Webtoons. I just couldn't keep up with making everything and marketing channels and all of this other stuff on top of the artwork.
So for your Webtoons, is everything free, or do you have a kind of a pay barrier after a certain amount of chapters?
Yep. So I'm gonna just post it free, weekly episodes. It won't be everything, but if you want to go onto my website, you can get the full book. It's available once you become a patron. All you gotta do is support, become a patron, and it unlocks for you. Um, but yeah, that it could change. I'm in this place where I've only signed one contract in the storytelling world, and I'm gonna honor that. But I could shift on a lot of different things with these stories.
Do you feel at any point you want to do like print runs of any of this kind of stuff?
Maybe I would have to have a partner. I think that was the first goal. I submitted Boundless when I finished it to an agent, and I got representation, which is an exciting experience as any writer
Yeah.
or graphic novelist. And then he submitted it, to my understanding, potentially to some of the larger publishers. Some of them were quick no's. A couple are tabled. I think there's a when you're a debut author, they want to take you on, but they also don't know if they want to take you on. It's kind of one of those things where they need someone to act first. So Boundless is kind of in this hiatus world. So I decided to just launch it publicly while it's still pending a few things. While I did get a separate deal for a totally new story called The Path to Zinji, and I'm full steam ahead with IDW and Top Shelf Productions on that one. And I think what's happening, I'm just guessing, is a lot of folks might want to see how well that book performs when it's
Mhm.
done, which I think it's going to do great. But once they see how that performs, other things will start circling back, and then they'll come back with. But I don't know how much I even want to do that yet. We're all kind of learning in this process.
Yeah, and one of the things they're trying to learn about you is how does he work? How
Yeah,
fast is he? How does he hit
right.
deadlines? Is he nice to work with? Like that that means so much too. Like is he an
Oh
asshole?
yeah, yeah. No, I'm
You know?
guessing. I feel safe to say this, but the first time I submitted a few things, the editor I work with, his name's Chris. He's at Top Shelf. He is tremendously skilled at storytelling. Anytime he gives me feedback, I'm just like, how did I not think of this? I never knew how skilled. It's naive of me how skilled some of these editors are, but when I submitted some of these things and they're giving me feedback, at first there was so much feedback before some decisions were made, a
Mhm.
lot of intense and some of it kind of blatant. I think they wanted to see like how are they going to react to this? Because as an artist, you spend 8 hours on a painting and then you know multiply that by 10 pages and then you submit it with your plot and then they rip into it. How are you going to handle that? Are you
Yeah.
going to be, oh, I worked so hard and but I'm right, or are you going to humble yourself a bit? That was back to earlier. I was saying like I chose the path of serving the story versus myself, and then you grow so much if you can
Yeah.
humble yourself.
Yeah, and where are you going to stick up for your vision too? Like, hey,
Yeah,
we don't think it should be a whale, it should be a shark. and you're
Yeah.
like, and you have to make that decision. Are they right or am I right? And am I going to stick my nose in, plant my
Yeah.
feet down for this? Those are
I
all things
haven't
I look at.
gotten through that yet.
Yeah.
I'm waiting on the day, but I'm open and I will fight on things, but their ideas, some of these editors' ideas are so solid that you're just like, oh, I can't argue with you. You're so right. You know?
Yeah. And Top Shelf is one of those publishers. I mean, we all know IDW. Everyone's listening knows IDW. But
Yeah.
Top Shelf underneath them, a lot of people don't know because they tend to stick in the YA
Yep.
genre, which is super popular. But for like what I read and what my audience is into,
Yep.
it kind of falls through the cracks, kind of like
Yeah.
Paper Cuts does for the all ages stuff, and we can go on and on about different publishers.
Yeah.
Going with them though, you get the path into like bookstores, to Barnes and Nobles. When you're doing this, was that going with them? Was that kind of a consideration? Like, I think my audience would serve better in a bookstore as opposed to strictly in the direct market, or was any of that in your mind?
No, no, I think here, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but
Yeah.
I'm trying not to define or think too much for the audience. I'm focusing so much on the characters and the story and the plot and making the best damn story I can, and then let the audience kind of groove and mesh properly. I think then that goes back to what I was saying with Instagram and when it was growing is like when I start getting a little too wound up and trying to think what people want,
Hmm.
the quality, at least from what I've seen, starts going down. So if I can focus on the characters, the story, and what I enjoy about the story, and if I'm having a great time, that usually shows through, and then that's where people can start resonating. Um, so I didn't think about that, but it is. It looks like that's kind of the direction some of these stories will go in. Um, but that's not my end goal. I'm not like I need a book in print in my hands, like so I can claim I'm an artist. You know.
It's just an extra bonus you get along the way.
Yep.
But yeah, that's why you bring on uh, someone to help you along with that too. Like they can kind of make
Yeah.
the decisions while you make the art. So
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't keep up with it. If I could do it, maybe. But again, I would do this even if none of this worked out. I would still be doing this. So
So we talked about Hesper and the Ekshapa.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, weird word. I know.
And tenth, and we haven't talked about Tenthera, but are those books also available on like a digital platform anywhere? Or?
So those are like active live stories. I actually post those occasionally. The two stories that are priority right now are Boundless, and then The Path to Zinji. Boundless will be public. The Path to Zinji closed door for now. Hesper and the Akshapa, and then the Tanther book. That one, those two are updated, but not with a schedule. So I work on those, and they're just going to be live. You subscribe on Patreon if you want, and then you get access to the story that I keep updating. But since there's 4 universes, well, 5 if we include the video game,
Hmm.
um, I'm not I'm not telling people I'm posting weekly. I'm posting monthly. I'm just posting when that I have some extra time to work on that story.
So let's talk a little about the Patreon because I don't see a
Yep.
ton of comic creators using this platform. What was the thought process in going that way with some of the projects?
At first, it was to make a little side money when I was first growing on Instagram and whatever. I kind of was like, whoa, this is like a cash grab opportunity kind of thing. But then over time, it became a lot more of a platform to house folks who are truly interested. Everyone could be a follower, but not everyone is a patron. And the folks that are the patrons, they kind of give you some of the best feedback
Hmm.
sometimes in private messages, and you take that feedback. And so that's where it's more of community based. That's what it's for now. It started a little more around money, but now I'm just keeping it alive and keeping that as the way to get more access to the story. Because honestly, other than just getting $5 a month, right? It's not like the end of the world. Those who are that excited about the story, usually message me on Patreon. So that's where I actually see the value in Patreon because there's just so much tighter engagement there. Um, but yeah, I don't know if I'll always be there, but it works for now.
Yeah, and I gotta imagine it keeps the trolls away too, because they're not going to pay $1 to be like, Mike, you suck. Like, no, those
No,
aren't the people we're going to pay to get in. Like,
no, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's like it's a little bit of a way to see like, hey, are you actually, everyone likes to talk, or I don't want to say everyone, but a lot of people like to talk about serving the audience. I think about more of serving the story,
Mhm.
but if you focus so much on the audience, it's just so distracting. I feel like the best audience members also want to serve the story. And that's how I'm trying to at least build these universes is like, how can we all be a part of these without us getting so egoic about it? Of like, oh, I'm an audience and I'm a fan. I deserve this. It's like, you don't deserve anything. You like the story or you don't. And do you want more of it? Stuff like that. But
Yeah, I think there is a cutoff to that. Like if you're
yeah,
doing a big IP, if you're working for Marvel or you're doing Star Wars or whatever,
yeah,
you're serving the audience, and
yes,
that's
that's
your
your job.
job.
Yeah.
When you're creating your own thing, I feel like you're serving yourself and you're hoping that an audience comes along with you.
Yeah, but those are the longest, and some of the longest lasting IPs, in my opinion, because then you don't just do this for, because then you're just, I feel like the first formula you just said, when you're just serving the audience only, you're always trying to keep up with this like invisible, like you're fighting an invisible person. You know what I mean? It's like you don't always know what they want, and they don't know what they want. But if you can focus on growing in your own world artistically and from a storytelling point of view,
Hmm.
then you'll start learning things about yourself, and other people will start meshing with that. Like in bands, happens in music. Like Dave Matthews, like hasn't he? I'm not a jam band guy, right? But like I think he sold like the most tickets of all time at like actual shows. I could be wrong, and like it's just because his fans jive with him jamming and what he likes to play and make, and he's definitely not just trying to impress people.
Yeah.
He's not that kind of musician, and I think that's the long term IP stuff. Um, but I do agree. I think at Marvel, and it's also you have such a budget. Like if you gave me that kind of budget, I feel like I could do so much. So in the same breath, I'd kind of look at other people and I'd be like, look, like let me have a shot at it if you
Yeah.
don't want to do this. But yeah,
Well, yeah, I always say like you can reinvent a character in certain ways, but you have to stick to the core of that. Like
yeah,
you can reinvent Daredevil 100 different ways, but like
yeah,
one of the core things, he has to be a Catholic. You can't make a
yeah.
Jewish Daredevil.
No,
you
no.
you tore out the spirit of that
All those
character.
little, yeah, those
Yeah.
little nuances and subtle comments he makes. Yeah, like,
Where if you, Mike, were making your Daredevil version, you could
yeah,
halfway through the book be like, and now he's converting to Judaism, and it doesn't matter because that's now that's your character, that's your vision. You're not
yeah,
servicing this giant IP. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
I don't know if it would work though, because like that's just sacred ground for someone else. You know what I mean? I feel like
yeah,
that might just be more of a compatibility thing as an artist and storyteller. I
yeah.
guess this same with making music. I don't like to do covers. Like I just like to make my own music because I just feel like that's someone else's space, and
Yeah,
I don't want to mess it up. Like.
yeah, and that tends to be. I like that stuff, but it tends to be
Yeah.
so much of the industry is like, well, let's do my version of Superman. I think of the Mark Wade. I forget
Yeah,
what
I
it's
get what you
called.
mean now.
But he did the book where it was like, what if Superman was black and he came
Yeah.
to America during the civil rights era or during slavery times? It might have been. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a Superman story, but it's like an alternate version of
Right.
Superman kind of thing. And those are great stories, but yeah, they are
Yeah.
cover stories. Yeah. So I got to ask before we get too much further into Boundless.
Sure.
Paws and Claws Studio. You're doing some
Yeah.
video game stuff. What's this all
Yeah.
about, man?
So I have a very whimsical, large cinematic, painterly, storytelling side, and then this is the dark side of the moon. This is a horror game. I actually am kind of nervous that I put it on my website because I was like, I don't know if this long term is going to be able to live here because the
Mhm.
fans who like my other stuff might see this and be like, like what is this? It's basically it's a horror game for PC. It's gonna be in chapters, but it'll start pretty small, like a 15-minute playthrough. And it's about a dog named Ralph, and you're in an abandoned mall, and there's back in the 90s, there's those pet adoption things in the mall. I hope they don't still have those, but they're pretty bad. If you ever knew the stories behind these pet adoption centers. Um,
I think so. At my local mall, and I hope, I mean, you can break the glass on this if you want, because this might be my
yeah.
ignorance, but they have a cat cafe.
No, no. So yeah, I think that's okay.
Okay.
These are like the puppy adoption malls. They basically would be like farming puppies, and they'd be selling them as puppies at stores in the mall. And anyway, the mall's abandoned, and you find and come upon this store, which is where they had those adoptions. And you kind of venture into the store in a labyrinth that's kind of behind it, and through this process of you're the character Ralph, you're kind of diving deeper and deeper into what is really not just a mall, but a partnership between animal experimentation and a pharmaceutical company. And you basically are relearning and remembering things because you were an experiment, and you have to survive and basically get out of this mall and pet store and labyrinth behind it, while you kind of start to get memories. It's pretty dark. It's a real dark story. It's horror. You're gonna have a lot of cortisol when you play it, and it's in Unreal Engine. So like, if anyone knows about video games or at least building them, Unreal has some incredible stuff. You can make like real movie level imagery, in the
Mhm.
game. So that's what Pause and Clause is. It's a horror game. Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, you involve animals, man, you're gonna get me crying. So be careful. Be
Well,
careful.
if you play as Ralph, your incentives to survive if you like animals. I mean, but yeah, that the horror world can be so creative.
Mhm.
I always judged it, and I could never watch a horror movie, which is weird. But then I started playing some horror games recently, and some of them are fun, especially when you play with friends because you're yelling and trying to run away. But yeah, so it's weirdly creative and fulfilling story to make with Ralph for sure.
Yeah, I used to say that I wasn't a horror guy. I said it for years and years, and on the show, and people can go back and find all the times
Yeah,
I said it. But I've noticed over the past few years, like that's such an insular look at it. Like horror, like
yeah,
any other genre, is this like grand thing. We just
right.
watched the movie The Monkey the other day,
Oh,
and like,
cool.
dude, I just had a great time with that. Like, it's yeah, there's
Yeah.
some over the top violent
Oh,
stuff in
for
there,
sure.
but it's a dark comedy. Like that's what.
Yep.
it's,
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm
so
not about the gore. I feel like sometimes, and then all of a sudden you like find yourself becoming a horror critic. You're like, I went from not liking horror to all of a sudden being like, well, I like this niche specific type of horror now. Like, yeah.
yeah, I so going with Paws and Claws, is this something that you kind of been doing on the side, programming yourself? Are you working with a team?
Yep,
What's
it's a
the
team. For finally, I have a team I'm working with on some project, which gives me some relief. We have a level designer who works in Unreal Engine. We have a coding. I don't know what to call him. He works at Dropbox, but he also on the side helps us code this stuff. And then we have an audio engineer who's in charge of the soundtrack. So we have a full squad. Um, so yeah, I'm not alone on that one. If I was alone on that one, I would be in over my head for sure.
so you're kind of the creative mind that's directing everybody and where the story's
Yep,
going, how
and
we're
I
gonna.
actually do work in 3D too,
Hmm.
and I've done that for my paintings before too. I'll model something in 3D and then paint over it. So I do help with some of the level design, but more of a director uh, for this for sure.
Awesome, that sounds really cool. So working in 3D, have you ever done like mock-ups of some of your characters as like maybe daydream of a toy or something like that down the line?
No,
No.
no. Anything, yeah, if I'm working on anything, it's usually a scene, a shot, or like whatever the next panel is. But That's not a bad idea. I try not to go down that whole IP road like we talked before. I'd
Yeah.
rather someone come to me and be like, "Hey, I have this toy. Sign here, and we're gonna make you money." And I'd be like, "Okay, cool," because I don't have energy for that. I'd rather go surfing or skating or something.
Oh, there you go. Skater, longboard, or like street
Uh,
style? Like what kind of skating you doing?
I have a regular board, like an 8 by 8.25, like a larger deck that I go to the skate park. I used to skate when I was younger, stopped, and now I'm skating again. Like, and the funny thing is, when I was younger, it was all these like kids smoking cigarettes, selling drugs, or whatever, and it was scary. But now, if you go to a skate park, and at least the ones I've been going to, it's just like dads and moms and scooter kids, and it's like super friendly. And it's kind of nice to get back into skating that way. But like the whole skating scene, I think, has changed a little bit. Since I was younger, anyway. When
Oh yeah,
I
when I
first
was
got to the
younger,
States.
doing it, I'm a few years older than you, but when I was younger doing it, it was all like that. And mind you, I was in it, but it was all that
Yeah.
skate punk scene, and it was
Yep.
all yeah.
Yeah.
We were all
You
mad. We
had
were
to
all
be
smoking
cool.
cigs. We're all doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were good. That's some of the fun stuff, man. And that was also just that boom era of X Games and
Yep.
Tony Hawk to the 900, and
Oh
the Tony Hawk
yeah.
video games are coming out, and we're just oh man, just the memories, man.
Yep.
I gotta get back into it though. I decided to get into combat
Do it.
sports instead.
Oh, okay.
I was actually worried coming into this because I got punched in the face yesterday, and I was like
Ooh.
hoping my lip wasn't all fucked up when I came to get on camera. But
Yeah, you're like, hey.
oh man, so Boundless. You kind of describe what the book is about.
Yeah.
What's kind of
Sort of.
the quick
Premises.
summary of what people can expect when they check
Yeah.
it out?
Yeah, if you go check out Boundless, it's about the only talking animal on our planet. He was an experiment, and he was created and set aside and hidden in the mountains because it was kind of considered treasonous or illegal when the government and the public on the down low kind of realized that there was a speaking animal. And what did that do to society? What could that do to how we view the world? And in most cases, a lot of large controlling systems don't want people to know that something like this is out there. So he's been living alone. His name's Rudy. He's out in Colorado. And his parents were part of his creation. They were the ones that kind of, they were geneticists. And they had to flee the country when they kind of discovered that he existed. And then he had to flee and kind of was stowed away. So now we have this separation. And he lived out in the mountains for a while. And he decides he wants to go find his parents, finally. And he leaves and gets hit by a girl driving her car. And she gets wrapped up in this story. Her name's Emily. And Rudy and Emily basically are stuck on this journey together to go find their parents across the world. That's
What
kind
kind
of
of
like,
animal is Rudy?
he's a fox, a short walking and talking fox.
Walking on two legs, kind of fox. Do you
Yep,
humanize them a little bit, or
yep. He's humanized a little bit. He doesn't have a tail, and he's pretty feisty. He has a lot of rude comments, but it's a little bit about who he is.
so? Do you consider it kind of a two opposites meeting, kind of
Yeah,
buddy cop, or not
sort of.
cop, but
Uh,
buddy adventure kind of story?
Yeah, Boundless was my first pancake, if you will.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it is still a good story, and it's two. I wouldn't say it's totally opposites, but we have someone who's kind of chasing something, his parents, his family, and his values, and then over time, through the lens of Emily, you kind of get to learn that she's avoiding things, and avoiding some subplots and things about her life. So you have someone chasing something, and someone running away from something, and they're both kind of unfolding all of these things together. That's kind of the subplot stuff going on, but they are so dynamic. It helps the contrasts, when you tell a story between two different people. Because two of the same thing, it can be done. It can be done well, but I just love contrast and stuff.
And when you're putting this book together, doing it in kind of a scrolling platform as opposed to a printed book or even an ebook. Is there
Yep.
any thought into how panel layout and how the page reads scrolling compared to flipping a page?
So Boundless, actually, when I took it off, because at first it was for Instagram,
Yeah.
when I took it off, I made it more for like a graphic novel print, but not because I wanted to print it. It was just easier to draw a page like as if it was a graphic novel. So now when I release the episodes, I'm actually editing it, and I'm like, ugh. I like have to I pull out the frames and I'm like putting it down and I'm like, how long does this scroll? And it's actually so technically the next episode that's going to be released, the book's there for reading on the website as if it were a print, but I got to edit it and slice it up and put it for webtoons to make it scrollable. So I put no thought yet into a lot of it. I'm kind of doing that as I go.
Okay, because I've always heard that from people that read on webtoons that it's a different reading experience as
It
opposed to
does. You could do cooler things. I didn't think like I thought about it too. Like you could do such fun stuff was like while the page is scrolling visually, but again, I'm letting that book kind of stay in that format and I'm not messing with it. But maybe some other stories in the future I might do that.
So, and this is completely done on your end. Like the books, you could send it all out tomorrow if you really wanted to,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So then, with that, it seems like the other book you talked about, I'm already forgetting the name. The Path of Zinji is kind of
Yep.
the main priority in the background
Yeah, right
as
now
you're
I'm working the most on that one. Because that's with, an actual signed publishing deal. So I want to make sure that goes well.
very cool. And yeah, I know you kind of told me off air, but there's not a whole lot to be said about that. That's just kind of the name's
Yeah,
been
right now,
announced, and
yeah, just keep the title and I'll let the people who are much better at selling stuff. Like I'm excited to talk about stuff, but I'm not
yeah.
going to try to sell you something because I don't, I'm not a salesman. I don't want to sell you this stuff. I just want to talk about it.
It, so coming back to Boundless after all these years and repurposing it in this way, what has it taught you about yourself as a storyteller? Or what does it
That's a
taught you
good
about what you've
question.
learned as a storyteller? How about that?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. Um, I think what I've learned the most is to focus more on writing out your script first. You see, I think there are times I kind of would have a general consensus, or I would write a very brief script and then draw it out, and I'd have to draw myself out of corners frequently with that first pancake in that book. Um, right now, the way I approach stories, or the second volume for Boundless, I will probably have the whole script written in
Mhm.
full. That's the biggest thing I've learned is work on your stories first, not the art. And with Boundless, I think at first I worked on the art, and then I tried to really I was like feeding a story into it. Just like the same scenario all the way back to that guy that walked by my desk at Geico, and he was like, hey, cool art. Who are the characters, and what's their story? I was coming from a place of art, then character, then story, where now it needs to be story, character, then the art can come in.
Yeah, it's probably less, how do I say this? Less physical work to write yourself out of a corner as opposed to draw yourself
Yeah.
out of a
It
corner.
sounds obvious, but when you do it all yourself, you just sometimes want to draw, and just get into it, and you don't want to wait.
Well, I could see as an artist being art first,
Yeah.
you being like, I know what the story is, I'll just draw it.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and then you find yourself in a corner as opposed to actually plotting it out like a writer would and then having the artist come back and reinterpret those words. I could
Yeah.
definitely see where that mistake could come about with
Oh,
something
for
like
sure.
that.
And when I learned from my editor now with the past to Zinji, literally like he'll say something and then I'll look back at Boundless and I'll be like, oh, I might have made a mistake there. But I won't say it because I feel like that would get in the way of the story. And some people might like it the way it is, but I'm growing so much and I'm looking back and I'm just kind of cringing at some of my old work too. But that's just getting older and learning.
I think about that sometimes with somebody like one of the greats like Jack Kirby. Like, does he go back to his old
Yeah.
stuff and he's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
oh, and we're all sitting here be like, this is a masterpiece.
Oh, you know what I even thought about too, and I don't watch it much anymore, but I saw the like one of the first episodes of Family Guy a while back,
Hmm.
and I was like, this looks terrible.
Yeah,
Like the draw, just and I was kind of like, but at the time we were like, this is the funniest, best thing ever, and of course it's so good now. But yeah, like I think it's just every evolution of any storyteller goes through that.
yeah. Look at those old South Parks. Like, it's literally
Oh, that's
cardboard,
even
man.
worse. Yeah.
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 So people out there, they're gonna go check out you on Webtoons. They're gonna fall in love, so they're gonna want to go to Patreon. How does the Patreon work? Like, what can people expect when they get there?
Really, the funny thing is I want my website to be the place or the hub where people go. But Patreon kind of can just become a place where you message me,
Hmm.
or you see an update. That's where I'm going to be putting updates of, hey, put an episode on here, or a chapter on this. And then it's just an unlock to just get access to the full book and all of that stuff. So it's not just about the gate. It's also about messaging me independently if you want to say anything. Um, that's kind of, I don't want them to expect too much, right? But you
Hmm.
get all the stories and a chance to chat if you want.
So if they do like the $5 full access tier, they're getting the Hesper and the Xbara book. They're getting
Yep.
Boundless and the other book I'm zoning on now.
You're good. You're good.
Tantra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get access to those, and those are the other two are really ongoing. But the main one that at least most of the patrons will want access to now is Boundless. I think
Okay.
most people know about Boundless. Honestly, Hesper and the Akshapa and Tantra and these other stories. This is like one of the first interviews I've talked about any of this. So
Yeah.
some people might come across this who know about Boundless. They're gonna be like, "What? Like you have four other stories?" And I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, yeah. Anyway, like check it out." Yeah,
Yeah, I don't do marketing. It's fine.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, right now anyway. But
So that is access through your website then, because I saw
yeah. Yep,
on your website you can read now on them, but it directs you back to Patreon before you can get any
yep,
further. So
yeah,
okay, that's a different experience from what I've seen on Patreon. Usually, not comic
yeah.
related stuff, but usually podcasts and stuff like that on Patreon. But
Oh, for sure.
yeah, interesting. So basically, what you're telling me is for $5 a month, people get a bunch of really cool books.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like making them, you know, a Mike Plus, if you will, or Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Mike Plus. I don't know. All these pluses out for subscription services. I'm just following the trend, I guess. I don't know.
Can can you say whether or not Zinji will also be on there?
Probably not. I'm
Okay.
guessing. Yeah, that's going to be a much more controlled IP.
Hmm.
The one big thing that was important for me is how much ownership I had in the storytelling, which I'm happy with. But as far as actually distribution, that's for a bigger team with much more skill than I have.
That's you exploring another method of telling your stories, maybe.
Yeah, I won't even. I don't think I'll even have much part in all that. It involves my agent and IDW and all of them, and even if I wanted things to go a certain way, yeah, I'm kind of along for the ride on some of that.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean,
No.
uh, talk to some of these indie guys, man. Like all the work they got put into just to get one book out, it's insane.
Yeah.
So get someone else to do it. Sounds like it's a good deal to me.
Yep.
Um, Very cool. I mean, anything else coming out? I mean, I know you said Boundless is the thing. We want everybody to go read Boundless, and everybody's going to go read Boundless. But that's kind of your. So basically,
Yeah.
right now it's Boundless coming out, Zenji in the future, Paws and Claws Studio. We'll probably hear about soon.
Yeah,
Is what's going.
2027 is the goal for that game. I don't know if we'll hit it, but that would be great to ship that in a year. But yeah, pretty much, open to anyone just messaging me, asking questions about the stories. I appreciated everyone who's ever supported Boundless, even when I was on hiatus. It's kind of been a wild ride, but it's been fun.
Well, it sounds like you've learned quite a bit on that wild ride, so
Yeah.
it's all good stuff, man. If people want to follow you further, I mean, do you do a lot of social media outside of your Patreon? Have you kind of shied away from that? Where do you want to send people?
Go ahead. You can check me out on Instagram if you don't want to dive full in at Mike underscore Salisbury on Instagram. Or you can go to MikeSalisburyStories.com just to see what the art looks like. But at the same time, I want people to just come to the stories if they really feel engaged and interested and enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. And everybody out there, I'm gonna have some links down below. I'll obviously Mike's website. You'll see the Instagram link down there. I'll even put the Patreon link down there. So after you read Boundless, you can be like, "Hey, let's go to Patreon." And then I'll find it on Webtoons as well, and give you a link there so you guys can read free comics. Because who doesn't love free comics? That's the best,
On Free
right?
Comic Day.
Yes, yes. We're
Yeah.
recording on Free Comic Book Day too, so even better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so check out those show notes down below and check out everything Mike's doing. Man, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I'm become a fan of your art just by staring at these images going over and over, and just look forward to see what you got coming up next, man. So best of luck with everything.
Thanks, Chris.